Hello and welcome to the Omniscope app tutorial. So we're just starting here on a blank workflow. And the first step is to click on this blue plus button and drag out a file input block. From here, you can decide the path and import the file. In our case, we'll be importing two instant coffee data files. The next step is to head over to the preparation section and drag out a field organizer next to your data input block. Within this field organizer, you can change the format of the fields. In our case, we're going to add a new field called total sales, a decimal field, which will be a formula. And so we have created now a new field at the end called total sales. We can decide to limit the amount of decimal places shown. Additionally, we can create a new field to check that the numbers add up, a check field. And I can input my formula. Decide to also show two decimal places here. And so once this field organizer block has been configured, since we want to do the same thing to our second file input, we simply duplicate this field organizer block and connect it to the other file input. Next, we head over to this preparation section again and just drag out an append block. This block allows you to add data sets together. So if we want to add our two data sets, we use the append block. And our source field tells us from which block our data source is from. So we have field organizer here. And when we go down, we have field organizer 2. Next up, let's say that as a manager, you wanted to figure out how many items there were per brand in this catalog of coffee sales. So to do something like this, you could drag out an aggregate block and connect it to your upstream append block. By choosing brand in the split field and item description unique value count, we can accurately find out this information by simply running the block. And here in the data, we have the brand name and the number of items per brand in the catalog. We can choose to drag out a file output block and choose a destination path. And that information will now be outputted in this Excel spreadsheet. So the next step is to enrich our data. So we can drag out this file input block and add a mapping file for our coffee data. And with this mapping file data, there are a few steps that we need to go through before we can merge this data set with our coffee data set. We need to do some data cleaning. So we can start with the normalize case. For these two fields. And secondly, we can drag out the deduplicate block to make sure there are no duplicate values. Once we've cleaned the data, we can now take out this join block and join our appended data set with our new mapping file. We've now added geographical coordinates to our coffee data. Now, if we take a look at our new data set, we can see that on these two fields, fair trade and organic, we have 95% no value records. And they should be no because they're the counterpart to yes. So what we can do is we can drag out a search and replace block from our prep, search for the no value fields, replace it with a no, and replace it on the organic and fair trade fields. When we run it, just check that it has done what we want. Yep. And then finally, drag out a report block to do a visual exploration of the data.